Hi SD fans, welcome back to the channel. I've talked about DSMBs or delayed surface marker buoys once or twice in the past. This simple tube goes with me on every single ocean dive I do, and having one and knowing how to safely deploy it from depth is something that I think should apply to all divers, regardless of where you are in the world. In this video, I'll look at the two main ways of deploying a DSMB, spool and reel, and I'll look at the pros and cons of both, as well as some of the ways of inflating the buoy itself. The humble DSMB. This has to be one of the most important bits of safety kit that a diver can have in their arsenal. Why? Well, let me give you a few examples. You're on a wall dive and you get blown off into the blue by the current. Without a DSMB, your boat cover is not going to know where you are until you surface. And if you happen to be at 40 meters when you lose sight of the wall, by the time you get up top, you could be literally hundreds of meters away from where they're expecting to find you. You then face the prospect of drifting around on the surface hoping to be found. And a diver's head poking out of the water is not the easiest thing to locate. This is not some far-fetched what-if scenario. This has happened on numerous occasions around the world. Here's another one. You're on a dive and through whatever reason end up with some decompression obligations that you do not have enough gas to fulfill. Yes, I know, with proper planning, this should never ever happen. But alas, we know it does. With a DSMB, you can write a message on a slate and fire it up to the surface attached to the buoy, so that your surface cover know what is happening down below and can bring down another cylinder and regs. Okay, so they are two extreme examples, but just using a DSMB to signal where you are at the end of a dive makes life so much more simple for your boat cover. I tend to fire one up from my 6 meter safety stop, but I have enough line to be able to send it up to the surface from 40 meters. It's no good the proverbial hitting the fan and you can't launch your DSMB because you don't have enough line for the depth you are at. I've seen several DSMBs that come in a little pouch with 6 meters of line, but this severely limits their scope of use. So do yourself a favour, if you've got one of these, bin the line and get yourself a reel or a spool. Now, let's look at reels first. This was how I was originally taught to launch DSMBs, and many people still prefer to use a reel for DSMB deployment. Now, there are obviously several types of reel on the market, and I have seen people use small cave reels to launch DSMBs, but these are not designed for that purpose. And I have seen it firsthand all go horribly wrong, especially if they fail to adequately undo the screw that locks the reel closed. If you want to use a reel, get one designed to deploy a DSMB. These will have a handle and then they basically have a trigger release for the spool. Basically, you depress the trigger, spool runs free as the DSMB heads for the surface. Once it arrives, release the trigger and then you can wind the spool in to put tension on the line and keep the DSMB upright on the surface so that it can be seen. You then can wind it in nice and slowly as you make your ascent. As you can see, they're a very simple design and they work. You can choose from basic plastic versions to super deluxe metal units like this one from Apex. You can even find plans online to make your own out of wood. So, the pros are they're easy to use and they can be cheap to buy. The cons are they can be quite bulky, especially larger units like this one. So remember that, if you get these, you're not going to be able to store them in your thigh pocket of a dry suit or the pocket on a BCD. You're going to have to secure them on a D-ring, and no one likes being a Christmas tree underwater. Let's look at spools. Now, these are very simple bits of kit. They're essentially a spool wrapped in line, which is then secured with a double-ended clip. Now, they can be made of plastic or metal, like this anodized aluminium version from Apex. To use, you just release the clip, and then as the DSMB rises to the surface, loosely hold the spool between your thumb and your forefinger, and the line unwinds. Once the body's on the surface, you can wrap the line back around the spool a few times to put the tension on it and raise the DSMB. It is literally as easy as that, winding the line back around the spool as you ascend. Anytime you need to make a stop, you can simply secure the line with the clip to prevent it from unravelling. The pros of spools are they're cheap, compact and easy to use once you've got the knack. And as you can see, they'll easily stash in a BCD or dry suit pocket out of the way until you need it. The cons are they take a little bit more effort than trigger reels to get used to, especially dealing with the double-ended clip. But this is all down to practice. Now, regardless of what you use, practice makes perfect. You need to practice launching a DSMB. You ideally want to get to the stage where sending one up to the surface is almost second nature and not a chore. And this will only come with time spent in the water. Now, here's a tip. Get an old DSMB and punch a small hole in the top. Just a small one up here. You can then launch the buoy from, say, 5 meters. Once it hits the surface, the air inside will leak out and you'll be able to wind it back down to you so that you can do it all over again, repetitively, without having to return to the surface each time to empty it. Now, there are many different types and sizes of DSMB on the market. Some have a one-use canister of compressed gas to fill them up. These are effective, they are easy to use, but they're a pain to travel with, for obvious reasons. Others have a valve that you can either blow into, or you can push your low pressure whip from your BCD or dry suit on. Most are like this one with an open bottom. Nice and easy to use, and there are various ways to fill this DSMB style up. You can use your octopus and purge a bit of air into it. Now, this works well, but it means that you're going to have one hand holding the octo reg and the other holding the DSMB and your reel or your spool. In colder waters, purging your octo repeatedly in this way can bring on a free flow. So I tend to use another method. I use the exhale gas from my primary regulator. What I do is when it's attached, I'll hold the spool in my right hand out in front of me, between thumb and forefinger, ready to deploy. And the DSMB, which is attached to the line, I hold it up with the bottom like this, up here to the left-hand side of my head. Tilt my head to the right and I breathe out. The exhale bubbles that come out of the left-hand exhaust valve go up into the DSMB. 2 or 3 exhalations and the buoy's ready to go. As I feel the DSMB start to pull, I move it away from me and let it go. That keeps the risk of me getting tangled in the line to an absolute minimum. And as I use my exhale bubbles to fill the DSMB, once it's on its way to the surface, my buoyancy is still exactly as it was before I started the process. Now, I've been launching DSMBs in this manner for the best part of 20 years. Give it a try when you're next practicing launching a delayed surface marker buoy. It could well become your go-to method too. I have seen people take out their primary regulator to fill their DSMB. That's not a good idea. If something goes wrong, you have now not got your main source of life-giving gas in your mouth. You may think that you would be able to get it back in place very quickly in case of an emergency, but that is often easier said than done when it's all going horribly pear-shaped. So do yourself a favour, leave your primary in your mouth. Remember, whichever method of filling you use, the deeper you are, the less air you will need to put in your DSMB to send it on its way, as this will expand as it rockets skyward. Even from your safety stop, you do not need to try and fill the buoy before letting it go. You just need enough gas in it to allow it to stand erect on the surface when you apply tension to the line. No one wants a floppy now, do they? Moving swiftly on. Have you got any hints and advice on launching DSMBs? Leave your comments below, and if you've got a question, fire away. If we can answer it, maybe someone in our ever-growing community will be able to. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out our playlist for more educational and inspirational videos. Remember, as always, if you're going diving, stay safe. And remember, don't forget your DSMB.